The six-legged beast moved with surprising quiet for something so big. Darren had been tracking it since sunrise, following broken branches, disturbed plants, and bits of teal fur stuck on thorns. He needed this hunt. Winter was coming, and without meat to smoke and store, his food wouldn't last. Darren shifted his grip on the heavy spear, its wooden shaft smooth from years of use. The weight felt steady and familiar in his rough hands. His long knife hung at his belt, ready if the beast charged and the fight got close. 15 years as a soldier of the Orion Guard had taught him to always have a backup plan. 3 years alone on this unforgiving planet had taught him that backup plans often failed anyway. The forest grew denser. Massive tree trunks wider than he could hug stretched up toward a deep violet sky. Strange, round fruits hung from twisted branches, most poisonous to humans. He had learned that the hard way during his first month here. Darren still carried the scars from the seizures and vomiting that had almost killed him. He froze when a twig snapped, but not from the direction of the beast. Something else was moving in the forest. Darren crouched lower, muscles tense. 3 years of living alone had made him cautious about any surprise. This world had already tried to kill him in countless ways, and he wouldn't give it another chance. The rustling grew louder, fast and careless. Whatever was coming wasn't hunting. It was running away. Darren moved behind a thick tree trunk, spear ready. A flash of teal burst from the bushes. Stumbling, gasping. Not the beast. A child. An Orin child. The soft, blue-green-skinned girl couldn't be more than 8 or 9 in human years. Her face was scratched, and dark indigo blood was dried along her cheek. Her wide, metallic silver eyes darted behind her until they locked on Darren. She froze, shaking at the sight of him, an alien with a weapon. Darren had met Orins before. They looked a lot like humans, despite their tinted skin and shining eyes. They were tribal, protective of their lands, and best avoided. He'd learned enough of their language, Sareth, to trade now and then at the edge of their villages, but he always kept it brief. Trust was something he'd given up long ago. The girl stared at him, fear clear on her face. Then her expression shifted. Desperation overcame fear. "Please, off-worlder, help," she said in halting Sareth. "My mother is trapped." Darren didn't move. Getting involved in Orin problems was exactly the kind of trouble he had avoided for years. The crash that had stranded him here had freed him from humanity's endless wars and politics. He had chosen a life of solitude, simple and uncomplicated. "Please," the girl repeated, stepping closer. "The sky predator will kill her." Darren noticed her clothing, crude leather, unlike the woven fabrics most Orins wore. Her feet were bare and tough, showing she spent more time in the wild than most Orin children. "Where?" The word came out rough from lack of use. Darren rarely spoke aloud anymore, even to himself. Relief lit the girl's face. "This way, not far." She turned and ran back the way she came, expecting Darren to follow. Darren hesitated. The six-legged beast would be long gone now, scared by the noise. That meant no meat for winter, no extra safety against hunger. He should turn back, return to his shelter, and hunt again tomorrow. Instead, he followed the girl. She moved quickly despite her small size, weaving through the thick plants like someone who had grown up here. Darren kept up, scanning for danger. His spear stayed ready. Not all predators here hunted alone. "What's your name?" he asked as they ran. "Saris," she answered without slowing. "Mother calls me Sari." "What happened, Sari?" "Sky predator. Big one. Mother pushed me from nest when it attacked. I fell into bushes. She fought it, but..." The girl's voice broke. "It took her to its nest. She's still alive. I heard her calling." Hunters. Massive flying predators with leathery wings stretching more than 20 feet across. They resembled ancient pterodactyls from Earth's fossil record, but with 6 unblinking eyes and rows of razor-sharp teeth lining their long jaws. They usually hunted the tree-dwelling herbivores that lived in the forest canopy, but wouldn't hesitate to seize an Orin or a human. if they had the chance. "There," Sari said, pointing upward as she slowed. Darren looked up and his stomach tightened. A colossal tree towered before them, dwarfing even the surrounding giants. Near its crown, nearly 200 feet above, a massive nest of tangled branches and debris clung to the trunk. This was no ordinary sky predator. Only the largest and oldest of them built nests that size. A faint cry drifted down from above, weak but unmistakably Orin. "She's alive!" Sari's face lit with desperate hope. "Please, Offworlder, help her." Darren studied the tree with a soldier's sharp eye. The rough bark offered enough handholds for climbing, but the ascent would be slow and dangerous. By the time he reached the nest, the predator might return. If it did... "Wait here," he told Sari, slipping off his pack and placing it at the base of the tree. He kept only his spear and knife. "If I'm not back by nightfall, head east until you reach the river. Follow it downstream. You'll find other Orins eventually." Sari nodded, but fear shimmered in her silver eyes. Darren began to climb, his fingers and boots searching for purchase in the gnarled bark. The effort was punishing. Sweat soaked his tunic and his muscles burned. More than once, a handhold crumbled beneath his grip, nearly sending him plummeting. At one point, his foot slipped entirely, leaving him dangling by one arm as his heart hammered. A fall from this height would mean certain death. Halfway up, a piercing screech cut through the air. Darren pressed himself against the trunk and went still. The predator had returned. Its massive form circled the canopy, leathery wings slicing the air. From here, Darren could see it in grim detail, a nightmare of wing and fang. Its 6 eyes swept the forest floor, likely searching for Sari. When it didn't see her, it banked toward the nest. Darren barely breathed as it landed, settling into its nest with a fresh kill. A small, blue-furred animal that looked like a forest deer. Not the missing Orin woman, then. The predator had been hunting elsewhere. He waited until it began tearing into its prey, the sound of ripping flesh and crunching bone covering any noise he made. Then he resumed climbing. Soon, he was just below the nest. Movement rustled inside. Not just the predator feeding, but something else. Labored breathing, faint whimpers of pain. Darren tightened his grip on the spear. He'd have one chance. If he missed or only wounded the creature, he would die here, and the Orin woman would soon follow. Drawing a deep breath, he pulled himself up into the nest. The predator reacted instantly, whipping its long head toward him. 6 eyes locked on him with cold, hungry focus. Its wings spread halfway, cramped in the space, and its blood-slicked jaws opened in a screech of fury. Darren didn't hesitate. He drove his spear forward with every ounce of strength, aiming for the point where its long neck joined its body. The spearhead punched through the leathery hide, sinking deep. Hot, greenish blood sprayed from the wound, splattering his arms and face. The predator screamed, a piercing cry of pain and rage. Its head darted forward. Hunters, massive flying predators with leathery wings spanning 20 feet or more, resembled ancient pterodactyls from Earth's fossil record, but with 6 eyes and razor-sharp teeth lining their elongated jaws. They typically hunted the tree-dwelling herbivores that populated the forest canopy, but would not hesitate to snatch a Novan or a human if the opportunity arose. "There!" Lyra pointed upward, slowing her pace. Kale looked up and felt his stomach tighten. A colossal tree rose before them, dwarfing even the giants around it. Near its crown, perhaps 200 feet up, a massive nest of tangled branches and debris clung to the trunk. This was no ordinary sky hunter. Only the largest, oldest of their kind built nests this substantial. A distant cry echoed from above, weak but distinctly Novan. "She's alive!" Lyra's face lit with desperate hope. "Please, human, please help her." Kyle assessed the tree with a soldier's calculating eye. The trunk was rough-barked, with enough handholds for climbing, but the journey upward would be perilous and slow. By the time he reached the nest, the sky hunter might return. "If it does, wait here," he instructed, unshouldering his pack and setting it at the base of the tree. He kept only his spear and knife. "If I'm not back by nightfall, head east until you reach the river. Follow it downstream. You'll find other Novan eventually." Lyra nodded solemnly, but fear shimmered in her silver eyes. Kyle began his ascent, finding purchase in the tree's gnarled bark. The climb was grueling. Sweat soon soaked his tunic, and his muscles burned with the effort. Several times, handholds crumbled beneath his fingers, nearly sending him plummeting to the forest floor. Once, his foot slipped and he hung by one arm, heart pounding as he scrambled to regain his footing. A fall from this height would mean certain death. Halfway up, a piercing screech split the air. Kyle pressed himself against the trunk, becoming as still as possible. The Sky Hunter returned, its massive form circling the forest canopy. From this distance, Kyle could see the creature clearly, a nightmare of leathery wings and glistening teeth. Its 6 eyes scanned the forest floor, likely searching for Lyra. When it didn't spot her, the predator banked toward its nest. Kyle remained motionless, barely breathing as the creature settled into its nest with a carcass, something with blue fur that resembled a small deer. Not the Novan woman, then. The hunter had been hunting elsewhere. He waited until the beast began tearing into its meal before continuing his climb. The sounds of ripping flesh and crunching bones masked the noise of his ascent. Finally, he reached a position just below the nest. He could hear movement inside, both the wet sounds of the hunter feeding and something else. Labored breathing punctuated by small sounds of pain. Kyle adjusted his grip on his spear, preparing himself. He would have one chance, one strike. If he missed or merely wounded the creature, he would die in this nest, and the Novan woman would follow soon after. He took a deep breath, steeled himself, and lunged upward into the nest. The Sky Hunter sensed him immediately, whipping its long head toward the intrusion, 6 eyes fixed on him with predatory focus. Its wings unfurled partially in the confined space, and its blood-slicked jaws opened in a screech of rage. Kyle didn't hesitate. He drove his spear forward with all his strength, aiming for the juncture where the creature's long neck met its body. The spearhead punctured the leathery hide, sinking deep into flesh. Hot greenish blood spurted from the wound, splattering his face and arms. The Sky Hunter shrieked in pain and fury, its head darting forward with blinding speed, jaws snapping inches from Kyle's face. He twisted aside, maintaining his grip on the embedded spear, driving it deeper. The creature thrashed, powerful wings beating against the nest, threatening to dislodge him and send him plummeting. He wrapped one arm around a branch for stability and drew his knife with his free hand. The Sky Hunter lunged again, but this time Kyle was ready. He slashed upward, opening a gash across 2 of the creature's eyes. It reeled back, screeching in agony. Seizing the moment, Kyle abandoned his spear, leapt forward, and drove his knife into the wound he'd already created. He twisted the blade, feeling it sever something vital. The Sky Hunter convulsed, its massive body shuddering. A final gurgling screech escaped its jaws before it collapsed, wings twitching in death spasms. Panting, covered in greenish gore, Kyle turned his attention to the rest of the nest. Bones and rotting carcasses littered the tangled branches, creating a nauseating stench. Movement caught his eye, a blue form half buried under debris at the far side of the nest. The Novan woman lay partially pinned beneath branches and the remains of previous meals. Her silver eyes, identical to her daughter's, were wide with fear and disbelief as she stared at Kyle. Purple blood seeped from wounds on her arms and torso, but none appeared immediately life-threatening. "I'm here to help," Kyle said in the Novan tongue, sheathing his knife to appear less threatening. "Your daughter sent me." "Era is alive?" The woman's voice was weak but hopeful. "Yes, she's waiting below." Relief flooded her face, followed quickly by weariness. "Why would a human help us?" Kyle didn't answer as he carefully removed the debris pinning her down. The question struck too close to what he'd been asking himself since he decided to follow the girl. Why had he helped? 3 years of isolation had taught him self-reliance and detachment, yet here he was risking his life for strangers. Once freed, the woman tried to stand but crumpled with a gasp of pain. "My leg," she explained, gesturing to her right ankle, swollen and discolored. Cale examined it with gentle hands. "Broken but clean. I can splint it, but you can't climb down. I'll have to carry you." She hesitated, then nodded. "I am Lyra." Kyle fashioned a crude splint from branches and strips torn from his tunic. As he worked, Lyra studied him with cautious curiosity. "You have gentle hands for a warrior," she observed softly. Kyle glanced up, surprised. It had been years since anyone had noted anything gentle about him. "I was a field medic before becoming a soldier. Old habits remain." "A healer who became a fighter," Lyra mused. "Among my people, it is usually the opposite path." Something in her voice, a lack of judgment perhaps, made Kyle offer more than he'd intended. War changes priorities. Survival becomes more important than healing. Yet here you are, healing a stranger. Her silver eyes held his for a moment longer than necessary. Perhaps some things cannot be changed, even by war. The descent proved far more challenging than the climb. Cale secured Lyra to his back with vines stripped from the nest, but her weight made finding secure handholds difficult. Several times they nearly fell. During one heart-stopping moment, an entire section of bark broke away beneath his foot. They swung precariously, suspended only by his grip on a knot in the trunk. Lyra's arms tightened around his neck, her breath warm against his ear as she whispered something in her native language. A prayer, perhaps. "Hold tight," Cale grunted, finding a new foothold. "I won't let you fall." "I know," came her quiet reply, her trust unexpected and strangely warming. By the time they reached the ground, the forest had darkened with approaching dusk. Ira rushed forward with a cry of joy when she saw her mother. The reunion brought an unexpected tightness to Kyle's chest, an emotion he couldn't immediately identify. "You saved her." Ira's silver eyes shone with tears and gratitude. "Thank you, human." "Cale," he corrected automatically. "My name is Cale." They couldn't travel far with Lyra injured, so Cale constructed a simple shelter from branches and broad leaves. As darkness fell, he built a small fire, careful to use dry wood that produced minimal smoke. Sky hunters weren't the only predators in these forests, and fire would keep most at bay. While Ira tended to her mother, Cale cleaned his spear and knife of the hunter's caustic blood. His thoughts turned to his abandoned hunt and dwindling supplies. The winter would be harder now. But as he glanced at the Novan pair, huddled together by the fire, he found he couldn't regret his decision. After eating dried meat from Kyle's pack, Ira fell asleep, curled against her mother's side. Lyra remained awake, watching Kyle across the fire. When she caught him looking, she didn't avert her gaze. There was a directness to her that reminded him of the best commanders he'd served under, those who could assess a situation clearly without self-deception. "Why were you in these forests?" Kyle asked quietly. "Novan settlements don't usually range this far west." Lyra's expression darkened. "We fled our settlement. There is unrest among our people. Some clans have begun trading with the human outpost to the north." Kyle knew of it, a rough mining operation established by survivors from another crashed ship. He avoided them as carefully as he avoided the Novan settlements. "They trade resources," Lyra continued, "but also living merchandise. My husband died resisting when they came for Era. I managed to escape with her, but..." She looked down at her splinted leg. "We have nowhere to go now." Cale absorbed this information silently. Human exploitation was hardly surprising. It was one reason he had chosen isolation. Humanity brought its worst traits to every world it touched. "You can stay with me until your leg heals," he found himself saying, My cabin is a day's journey northeast. It's small but defensible. Surprise flickered across Lyra's features. You would shelter strangers? Kyle wasn't sure how to answer. 3 years of solitude had numbed something within him, buried emotions he'd thought long dead. Yet Era's plea for help had awakened something he had forgotten existed. Compassion, perhaps, or maybe just humanity. Get some rest, he said instead. We have a difficult journey tomorrow. The night brought new dangers. Kyle sat awake, keeping watch as Lyra and Era slept. Shortly after midnight, he detected movement in the underbrush surrounding their small camp. His hand tightened on his spear as glowing red eyes appeared in the darkness. A pack of nocturnal predators locals called shadow stalkers, wolf-like creatures with 8 legs and excellent night vision. They typically hunted in groups, surrounding their prey before attacking. Kale counted 6 pairs of eyes circling the camp. The fire would hold them at bay temporarily, but the flames were dying down, and he had limited wood to restore it. He acted before the pack grew bolder. With careful movements, he added the last of their wood to the fire, sending a sudden surge of flames upward. In that brief light, he identified the largest shadow stalker, the pack leader. Without hesitation, he hurled his spear with deadly precision, striking the creature in the throat. It collapsed with a gurgling howl, and the rest of the pack scattered, momentarily confused. Seizing the moment, Abel charged the nearest shadow stalker with his knife drawn. The creature leapt at him, but he had anticipated it. Dropping to one knee, he let the beast sail over him while slashing upward, opening its belly. Hot blood splashed across his arms as it fell behind him, writhing in death throes. The remaining stalkers retreated, unwilling to risk further losses. Abel retrieved his spear from the pack leader's corpse and dragged both fallen predators back to camp. The meat would be tough but nutritious, replenishing some of his dwindling winter stores. Lyra had awakened during the attack and watched with wide eyes as Abel returned. You fight like someone who has faced death many times, she observed. I have, Abel replied simply, beginning to skin the first creature. Yet you risk your life for strangers. Abel paused, knife in hand. Maybe I'm tired of fighting only for myself. Lyra studied him for a moment. Among our people, a provider who defends his clan is the highest calling. Many speak of it, but few truly embody it. She softened. You would have been respected among my people, Abel. Their eyes met across the fire, and for a brief moment, Abel felt something he hadn't experienced in years. A connection beyond survival. He looked away, uncomfortable with the unfamiliar warmth in his chest. Morning brought clear skies and the chittering calls of auroral creatures awakening in the canopy. Abel fashioned a crude crutch for Lyra and a travoa to drag her when the terrain grew too difficult. Their progress was slow but steady. Era stayed close to her mother at first, but curiosity soon drew her to Abel's side. She peppered him with questions about Earth, about humans, about his life before the crash. Abel answered minimally at first, unused to conversation, but gradually found himself elaborating as the girl's enthusiasm proved infectious. Were you a warrior? She asked, eyeing his spear with fascination. A soldier, he corrected. Not the same thing? Warriors fight for glory or honor. Soldiers fight because they are ordered to. Which is better? Neither, Abel admitted. Fighting only makes sense when you're protecting something that matters. Like how you protected us from the sky, Hunter? Era asked. Yes, he said after a moment. From a few paces behind, Lyra watched quietly, a small smile on her lips. When Abel glanced at her, she held his gaze, a warmth that made him briefly forget the harsh wilderness around them. Their journey was interrupted midday when the ground trembled. At first, Abel thought it was an earthquake, not uncommon on this tectonically active planet. But the rhythmic vibrations suggested something else. Get down, he commanded, pulling Ara behind a fallen tree. Lyra followed, wincing as she dragged her injured leg. Over the ridge came a massive creature, a thunderfoot. Like Earth's ancient brontosaurus, but with armored skin and 6 tree-trunk legs, it stood nearly 80 feet tall. Usually peaceful, Thunderfoots became devastating when frightened or territorial. "This one has a baby," Abel whispered, "which makes it even more dangerous." They remained still as the Thunderfoots passed within yards. The ground shook violently with each step, trees bending as the massive creatures pushed through the forest. Ara's eyes were wide with fear and wonder, but she stayed perfectly still, clutching Abel's arm. Abel instinctively wrapped his other arm around Lyra, shielding her from falling debris. She leaned against him without hesitation, her warmth oddly comforting. When the danger passed, neither moved immediately. "Thank you," Lyra murmured. "For what?" Abel asked. "For protecting us, for shielding others without thought." Their faces were close, too close for his comfort. He pulled away awkwardly. "We should keep moving." After the Thunderfoots passed, they continued with greater caution. By late afternoon, rain began to fall. Not the gentle showers of earth, but stinging droplets carrying a slight acidic burn. Abel hastily constructed a canopy from large leaves to protect them, especially Lyra, whose open wounds could be aggravated. Huddled beneath the makeshift shelter, curled together and exhausted from the day's journey, Abel watched Lyra gently stroke Ara's hair. There was a grace to her movements, a quiet strength he found hard to ignore. "She trusts you," Lyra said softly, noticing his gaze. "Children sense things adults often miss." "What do you mean?" "They see the truth beneath the surface. You built walls around yourself, Abel, but they're not as solid as you believe." He looked away. "Walls keep you alive in hostile territory, but they also keep you alone." They reached Abel's cabin as dusk approached. A simple structure built against a cliff face, stone walls, and a wooden roof. A small stream ran nearby, providing fresh water. Functional, not comfortable. Yet Lyra saw it as sanctuary. Inside, Abel gave the main bed to Lyra and Ara, fashioning a mat for himself from spare furs. That night, listening to their soft breathing, he realized it was the first time in 3 years he hadn't slept alone. Weeks passed. Winter arrived with howling winds and ice coating the trees. Inside, warmth prevailed. Abel's solitary routine expanded to include his companions. He taught Ara to set traps for small game and identify edible plants. Lyra, limited by her healing leg, made clothing from animal hides and wove baskets. Each evening they gathered around the fire, sharing stories of their worlds. Abel found himself speaking more than he had in years, describing Earth's oceans, mountains, and forests to 2 captivated listeners. Man. He fought for what he loved, even when the odds were against him. Abel squeezed her hand gently. "He would be proud of you both," he said, his voice low, carrying the weight of reassurance and shared understanding. The night stretched on, stars twinkling in the violet sky above. The forest around them was alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures, yet within the cabin's circle of firelight, a fragile peace had taken hold. Lyra rested her head on Abel's shoulder, Ara curling against her mother. Abel remained alert, his eyes scanning the shadows beyond the fire, but his heart felt an unfamiliar warmth, the bond with these 2 Novans anchoring him in a way he hadn't known he needed. Days turned into weeks. Abel's routine of hunting, maintaining the cabin, and protecting his companions became steady, punctuated by teaching moments. He instructed Lyra and Ara in basic self-defense, tracking techniques, and identifying edible plants. Lyra, despite her recovering leg, proved quick and observant, while Ara's curiosity and energy made her a fast learner. Evenings were for storytelling. Abel shared glimpses of Earth, its oceans, mountains, and endless forests, while Lyra described the Novan lands, their customs, and the cycles that guided their lives. One morning, Abel returned from a hunt with a modest catch. As he entered the clearing, Lyra and Ara were already preparing a fire. Ara ran toward him, her small hands clutching the spear he had shown her how to handle. "Look what I can do!" she exclaimed, demonstrating a practiced throw. Abel smiled, impressed. "Good," he said. "But remember, precision before strength. Always know your target." Lyra's silver eyes met his, a quiet understanding passing between them. "You teach well, Abel," she said softly. "Not just the body, but the mind. You see beyond survival." Abel paused, considering her words. He hadn't thought of it that way. Teaching had become more than necessity. It was connection. "We survive together," he replied simply. "That's all that matters." The seasons shifted. Winter's grip loosened as the planet edged toward spring. Snow melted into streams, and new growth sprouted in the forest. Abel ventured further afield, hunting larger game and gathering resources, while Lyra and Ara began exploring more boldly near the cabin, learning to navigate their home safely. Despite occasional dangers, predators, sudden storms, and the remnants of hostile humans from the northern outpost, they thrived. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold, Lyra joined Abel outside. "The stars are different tonight," she said, settling beside him. "Do you think your world has skies like these?" Abel studied the horizon, letting the cool air wash over him. "Perhaps," he said, "but they wouldn't feel the same. It's the company that changes the sky, not the stars." Lyra looked at him, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Then I am glad to share this sky with you, Abel." He returned the smile, a rare, genuine warmth in his eyes. "As am I," he said. For the first time in years, Abel felt the full weight of belonging, the profound understanding that life, even on a harsh alien world, could be more than survival. It could be home. The fire crackled between them, and in that quiet moment, human and Novan shared a fragile, enduring peace. A testament to courage, trust, and the unexpected bonds forged in the wild. Learning the contours of trust and desire across species, a mingling of warmth and the unspoken promise of protection, Abel responded with the care of a man who had seen death too closely, mindful of the fragile balance between strength and tenderness. Spring deepened, and the forest thrummed with life. Abel, Lyra, and Ara moved freely now, their routines intertwined. They hunted together, gathered fresh water from the streams, and maintained the cabin, reinforcing it against both natural hazards and the occasional wandering predator. Abel taught Ara to track small game, his patience infinite as the girl learned to read footprints and broken branches. Lyra continued to weave baskets and repair furs, but her eyes often lingered on Abel, assessing, questioning, yet trusting. One morning, as sunlight filtered through the canopy, Abel led Lyra and Ara to a nearby ridge to survey the surrounding territory. The rolling forest stretched in every direction, unbroken and teeming with possibility. "This is our land," Abel said softly, sweeping his arm across the vista. "We know it. We can protect it." Lyra nodded, her silver eyes reflecting both awe and determination. "And yet, it is not just ours. Every creature here, every plant, every stream, they are part of this balance we strive to maintain. You respect that, Abel. Not every human would." He looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "Respect isn't enough," he admitted. "You have to act on it, protect it when it's threatened. That's what survival demands." Ara tugged at his sleeve. "Show me how to climb higher," she begged, her excitement infectious. Abel laughed softly, lifting her onto his shoulders. "Then we climb," he said. Together they scaled the ridge, Ara's small hands gripping Abel's shoulders tightly, Lyra following with a careful but steady gait. From the summit, the world below looked endless, a mosaic of trees, streams, and wildlife. Evening brought calm, and the trio returned to the cabin, weary but invigorated. As they settled around the fire, Lyra hummed a soft melody, One Abel had come to associate with peace and home. Ara drifted off to sleep first, her small form curled against her mother. Lyra sat close to Abel, her hand brushing his occasionally, a silent connection that required no words. "You've changed me," Abel admitted quietly as the firelight danced across their faces. "I thought solitude was enough. I thought I wanted nothing more than survival." Lyra's gaze softened. "And now," he said, taking her hand in his, "I know there is more to fight for. More than survival. Family, trust, love, even if it's unfamiliar." Lyra's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Then let us fight together," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "For this land, for us, for our future." Abel nodded, a rare sense of certainty filling him. "Together," he echoed. As night fully enveloped the forest, the cabin glowed softly, a bastion of life, warmth, and resilience amidst the vast wilderness. Outside, the sounds of the forest continued, birds calling, insects humming, and distant predators stirring. But inside, a new kind of harmony had taken root. Abel, Lyra, and Ara were no longer just survivors. They were a family, bound not by blood alone, but by trust, shared struggle, and the unspoken promise that whatever came, they would face it together. And without mercy, but together, they had survived. Abel sank to his knees, heart pounding, the adrenaline of battle still coursing through him. Lyra leaned against him, her breathing heavy, Ara climbing onto his lap, small hands gripping his tunic as if anchoring him to reality. "We need to move," Abel said finally, his voice low but steady. "They'll regroup, and more could come. We can't let anyone trace us back here." Lyra nodded, understanding the urgency. She wrapped her arm around her belly protectively, the child within stirring as if aware of the danger that had passed. Over the next days, Abel and Lyra dismantled the cabin's familiar defenses, leaving false trails and booby traps to mislead any pursuers. They traveled light, using hidden paths through the dense forest, avoiding known trading routes. Ara, quick and silent, scouted ahead, her small form perfect for slipping through underbrush unnoticed. During their flight, the bonds between them deepened. Abel marveled at Lyra's resilience and strength, both physical and emotional, while she grew to understand the depths of his loyalty and cunning. Ara absorbed everything like a sponge, learning not only survival skills but also the meaning of courage and love. One evening, they rested near a spring fed by a hidden waterfall, the sounds of rushing water masking their presence. Abel cleaned his weapon, Lyra tending to minor bruises, and Ara played nearby. The sky burned with the colors of sunset, painting the forest in golden and crimson hues. Abel watched them, the ache of worry still present, but tempered by the undeniable warmth of family. "You think they'll come after us again?" Lyra asked quietly, settling beside him. "They might," Abel admitted, "but they won't catch us off guard next time. We've learned too much, and we've gained allies we never expected." His eyes scanned the forest, alert for any sign of danger. Yet, in the moment, the threat seemed distant, almost inconsequential against the bond they shared. Lyra rested her head on his shoulder. "I never imagined I could feel safe again," she murmured. "Not just physically, but emotionally." Abel tightened his arm around her. "It took us a long time to build this," he said softly. "But now we protect each other, all of us, and that makes us stronger than any enemy out there." Ara ran to them, clutching a wildflower she had picked. "Look, Father, for Lyra." She placed it carefully in her mother's hair. A simple gesture, but full of meaning. Abel smiled, pride swelling in his chest. Night fell, and for the first time in months, they allowed themselves to rest fully, the forest's nocturnal hum a lullaby rather than a warning. They were still fugitives, still hunted, but they were also a family, a unit forged through survival, trust, and unshakable love. Together, they would face whatever the universe sent next, their bond a shield stronger than any weapon. And as the stars shimmered overhead, Abel realized something profound. He had not only found a place to survive, but a reason to live. They entered the settlement cautiously, guided by the Novan leader and her small escort. The valley opened before them, a thriving community tucked between hills and dense forest. Huts of woven wood and stone were interspersed with cultivated gardens, and children, both human and Novan, ran freely along dirt paths, laughter ringing across the morning air. Abel felt a strange ache in his chest, relief, awe, and the faint echo of disbelief all at once. The leader stopped at a central gathering space where a communal fire burned. "Here, you will find safety and purpose," she said. "You may build, trade, and teach as you see fit. But above all, you will protect each other. That is our law." Abel nodded, absorbing her words, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders in a way that was no longer burdensome, but energizing. Lyra held their newborn close, Ara skipping alongside her, and Abel finally allowed himself to exhale fully. He watched as his family was embraced by the settlement's residents, tentative at first, then warmly accepted. The Novan and human settlers alike were cautious but curious, intrigued by the presence of a mated pair from different species and their children, symbols of unity and hope. Over the following weeks, Abel became a teacher and protector, sharing his knowledge of survival, tracking, and combat, while also learning the settlers' methods for agriculture, architecture, and medicine. Lyra contributed her expertise in Novan herbalism and rituals, her soft voice and gentle demeanor earning the trust and admiration of both species. Ara thrived in this environment, fearless and joyful, bridging the gap between cultures naturally, while Pax's early growth amazed everyone with the blending of human resilience and Novan vitality. Evenings were spent together as a family, sharing stories, meals, and laughter by the fire. Abel and Lyra often paused to watch Ara teach younger children how to track small animals, her tiny hands precise and confident, or to marvel at Pax's first attempts to crawl, wobbling but determined. The sense of belonging that Abel had never thought possible for himself on this hostile world now enveloped him entirely. One night, as the twin moons rose over the valley, Lyra leaned into Abel's side, her hand resting over Pax, and whispered, "We've come further than I ever imagined. Our children, they'll grow knowing what we fought for." Abel kissed the top of her head, his gaze sweeping over the sleeping village. "They will know peace, love, and strength. The universe can be cruel, but it can also be kind." And in that quiet, moonlit moment, Abel realized that the greatest victories were not won in battle or conquest, but in the creation of home, family, and hope. A sanctuary carved from the chaos of the stars. From that day forward, Abel, Lyra, Ara, and Pax lived not merely as survivors, but as symbols of what humanity and Novan alike could achieve when they chose compassion over cruelty, unity over division, and love over fear. The universe remained vast and unpredictable, but within that hidden valley, their hearts were tethered together, unshakable and unbreakable. Peace, Abel understood fully now, was not just the absence of war. It was the presence of family, purpose, and a future worth protecting. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more powerful HFY stories every week. Got an idea or suggestion? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Your support truly means a lot and helps this channel grow. Until next time, stay curious, stay human.